team, because this team's not going to look the same now. It's not. Basically, what Robin just told you is you can't keep Lexie and Sophie. And I'm kind of wondering, can they keep either one of them? You know, at this point. So let's see. Kelsey, Caitlin, Aaliyah Boston, Michaela Tim. Hell, that's 4 players. And you got to...
That face right there, that's the moment reality hits. Because what Robin Lundberg just broke down isn't some theoretical problem for next season. This is happening right now. The Indiana Fever are about to lose key pieces of the roster that took them to the playoffs, and there's literally nothing they can do about it. The new CBA that's supposed to help players is about to tear apart the league's most exciting team.
Roster. And I did a video earlier. We talked about things like the implications of a delayed season on the Indiana Fever, etc. This is a bigger issue. This is a personnel situation, and how the new salary cap and the new salary, the higher salary for average players, combined with what it's going to cost to bring back Kelsey Mitchell, could put Lexie Hull and Sophie Cunningham on the outside of the Fever looking in.
Let's start with the numbers, because they're brutal. Under the proposed CBA, max salaries jump to $1 million. Average player salaries approach $500,000. The salary cap sits at $5.65 million total. Now do the math. Kelsey Mitchell gets a max contract. That's $1 million. Caitlin Clark's rookie deal, even though it's cheap now, still counts. Aaliyah Boston's salary is about to skyrocket in her extension. That's 3 players eating up most of your cap space. And here's where it gets painful. You've still got to fill out the rest of the roster. Except now, the average salary is nearly $500,000, which means even your bench players cost significantly more than they did last season.
Could happen that the Kelsey Mitchell contract could end up being devastating on one of your starters, and essentially your sixth person, sixth woman, sixth man off the bench in Sophie. And we know Lexie starts these games. You're talking about 2 gargantuan pieces of the roster that would be out.
Lexie Hull and Sophie Cunningham. 2 names that Fever fans have tattooed on their hearts at this point. Lexie's a restricted free agent, which means Indiana can match any offer she receives. But here's the problem with that. She's proven she's worth more than an average player's salary. Her hustle, her three-point shooting, her defensive intensity, some team is going to offer her serious money, and the Fever might not have the cap space to match it. Sophie's situation is even more complicated. She's made it clear she wants to stay in Indiana. She's also made it clear she wants a more secure contract than what she's had. Can't blame her for that. But when you're trying to keep 3 max-level players and still field a competitive roster, something has to give.
Pieces, Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston will eventually move on from their rookie contracts. It's my understanding Aaliyah Boston's salary is going to go way up, too. And that could end up being a real issue. That first factor that will have immediate implications as soon as the league and the Players Association finally come to terms on the new CBA. This is because salaries for players are set to skyrocket in the new deal, potentially creating roster-building squeeze under the salary cap. Annie Constable of Front Office Sports broke down the numbers. I read this article.
Front Office Sports broke this down in detail, and the implications are staggering. If Mitchell gets the new max salary, her contract jumps more than 4 times in value from her current $250,000 base. 4 times. And it's not just the raw number that matters. It's the percentage of the cap. Under the old system, you could squeeze 3-star players onto a roster and still have room for solid depth. Under this new proposal, that math doesn't work anymore. Only Clark, Boston, and last year's rookie Michaela Timpson are currently under contract. Everyone else hits free agency. That means every single rotation player except 3 needs to be re-signed or replaced, and you're doing it with a salary structure that's fundamentally different from what built this team in the first place.
Citing the Fever as an example, given Kelsey Mitchell's free agency and likely supermax contract salary. As Constable noted, if Mitchell were to receive the new max, her contract combined with Clark's and Boston's would leave Indiana with well less than the new average player salary to spend to fill out the rest of the roster under the $5.65 million salary cap that is on the table. Of course, that cap number could still rise as negotiations continue. Well, even if the cap number rises, the average salary is going to...
Now here's what makes this particularly cruel for Fever fans. They finally have something special. After years of struggling, after the growing pains of integrating Caitlin Clark, after figuring out the chemistry between her and Aaliyah Boston, they've got a roster that works. A roster that's exciting to watch. A roster that sells out arenas and drives massive television ratings, and the reward for building that roster is being forced to dismantle it because the economic structure of the league changed underneath them. The advantage they thought they had, having Clark and Boston on rookie contracts, suddenly becomes a ticking time bomb. Because when those rookie deals expire, when Clark's contract ends after the 2027 season, when Boston's ends even sooner, the Fever won't be able to afford to keep everyone together.
And she is just one of the team's free agents. Only Clark, Boston, and last year's rookie Michaela Timpson are currently under contract, which means key contributors like Lexie Hull and Sophie Cunningham will also be on the market. Hull is a restricted free agent, which means Indiana can match any offers she receives, but her hustle and shooting has proven to be worth more than an average player. While Cunningham, who has made it clear she hopes to be back with the team, has also expressed desire for a more secure contract.
Let's talk about what this means in practical terms. Robin Lundberg's analysis makes it clear. Keeping 3 max players and still having room to fill out a competitive roster appears unlikely given what we know about how the CBA looks. 3 max players, that's Kelsey, Caitlin, and Aaliyah. Except Caitlin and Aaliyah aren't on max deals yet, so theoretically, you have some breathing room right now. But that breathing room disappears the moment you sign Kelsey to a max contract, because now you're committing $1 million to her, and you still need to account for Clark's and Boston's salaries, even at rookie scale. The math gets tight immediately, and when Clark and Boston do hit free agency and command their own max deals, the whole structure collapses. The Fever can't keep 3 max players long term. It's mathematically impossible under this CBA proposal.
Let's just skip down here. However, Boston will be entering a final season of a rookie deal with Clark's ending after the 2027 season. Both players will surely command supermax salaries, which is the equivalent of 20% of the cap in the proposed deal. Even if that percentage comes down, keeping 3 max players and still having room to fill a representative roster appears unlikely, given what we know about how the CBA looks. Wow.
Think about the position this puts the front office in. They've got to make a choice, and every option is painful. Option 1, you pay Kelsey Mitchell her max contract because she earned it, and you accept that Lexie Hull and Sophie Cunningham are probably gone. You lose 2 fan favorites, 2 players who were critical to your playoff run, 2 pieces of the identity you just built. Option 2, you let Kelsey walk in free agency, keep Lexie and Sophie, and hope that Caitlin Clark can carry the offensive load without another elite scorer next to her. Except that's not realistic. Clark's brilliant, but she can't do it alone. She needs another threat to take pressure off her, and Kelsey Mitchell is that threat. Option 3, you try to thread the needle. Sign Kelsey to less than a max deal. Keep one of Lexie or Sophie, and pray that your depth doesn't completely fall apart. But that requires Kelsey to take a discount, and why should she? She's one of the best scorers in the league. She's earned a max contract.
Like beyond this season, the Kelsey, Caitlin, Aaliyah thing is probably, that's not going to happen. You might have 2 somehow, but it's going to be extremely hard to keep everybody together.
Here's what I think happens. The Fever resign Kelsey Mitchell to a max deal. They have to. You can't let a scorer of her caliber walk away when you're trying to build around Caitlin Clark. Then they resign Lexie Hull because she's a restricted free agent and they can match any offer. They'll stretch their cap space to make it work, even if it hurts. Sophie Cunningham is the odd one out. She's the one who gets sacrificed, and that's going to devastate a portion of the fan base because Sophie became a cult hero in Indiana. Her energy, her toughness, her willingness to do the dirty work. Fans loved her. But when you're making impossible choices, someone has to go, and even after making that choice, the Fever's depth is going to be a major issue, because you've now committed significant cap space to 3 or 4 players, and you're filling out the rest of the roster with minimum contracts and hoping you find diamonds in the rough. But here's the deeper problem that nobody's talking about enough. This isn't just about the Indiana Fever. This is about what the new CBA does to competitive balance across the entire league. The old system, flawed as it was, at least allowed teams to keep their cores together if they drafted well and developed players effectively. You could build through the draft, retain your stars, and add complementary pieces. This new system penalizes success. The better you draft, the harder it becomes to keep everyone. The more stars you develop, the faster you hit the salary cap ceiling. And the solution becomes either breaking up your core or fielding a roster with no depth whatsoever. Neither option is good for the product on the court. Look at what the Fever accomplished last season. They went from lottery team to playoff contender in 1 year. That's supposed to be the goal, right? Build through the draft, develop young talent, create something special. Except now the reward for doing that is being told you can't afford to keep the team together. The system actively punishes you for being good at team building. And it's not like the Fever made mistakes here. They drafted brilliantly. Aliyah Boston, first overall pick in 2023, immediately becomes a dominant two-way player. Caitlin Clark, first overall pick in 2024, transforms the franchise overnight. They made smart veteran additions like Kelsey Mitchell. They found role players like Lexie Hull, who outperformed their contracts. They did everything right. The problem isn't their decision-making. The problem is the economic structure they're operating within doesn't allow success to be sustained. And that should terrify every WNBA fan, not just Fever fans. Because if the league's most exciting team can't keep their roster together, what does that say about the future of competitive balance? Think about the fan experience here. You spend a season watching this team grow. You watch Caitlin Clark and Aliyah Boston develop chemistry. You watch Lexie Hull become a legitimate 3-and-D threat. You watch Sophie Cunningham bring energy off the bench. You watch Kelsey Mitchell prove she can be the second option on a contender. You invest emotionally in these players, in these relationships, in this specific roster construction. And then the league tells you that roster can't exist anymore. Not because the players don't want to play together, not because the coach can't figure out how to use them, but because the salary cap math doesn't work. That's a brutal message to send to fans who just started caring about your product. The WNBA spent years trying to build fan engagement. They finally have it, largely because of Caitlin Clark and the Fever's success. And now they're about to demonstrate to those new fans that the teams they fell in love with are temporary constructions that will be dismantled for economic reasons. How is that supposed to build long-term loyalty? Here's another angle that makes this worse. The timing. The Fever didn't get a full healthy season with Caitlin Clark as a rookie. She dealt with injuries. The team was still figuring out rotations. They made the playoffs but got bounced in the first round. This upcoming season was supposed to be when everything came together. Year 2 of the Clark-Boston partnership. A full offseason to build chemistry. A roster that knows how to play together. Instead, it's going to be the last season this core exists in its current form. Because after 2025, the financial realities kick in. Aliyah Boston's extension comes up. The new CBA salary structures take full effect. The cap crunch becomes unavoidable. So Fever fans get one season, maybe, to watch the team they fell in love with before it gets broken up. That's not how you build a sustainable league. That's not how you retain the audience you just worked so hard to attract. That's how you create resentment and frustration among the fans who are supposed to be your foundation. And let's be clear about what's being lost here. Lexie Hull and Sophie Cunningham aren't just role players. They're not interchangeable parts you can replace with any warm body. Lexie shot 41% from 3 last season while playing elite perimeter defense. Sophie brought an edge and intensity that changed the team's identity. These are specific players with specific skill sets that fit perfectly with Clark and Boston. Replacing them isn't as simple as finding other players who can shoot and defend. You need players who fit the culture, who understand their roles, who complement your star's strengths and weaknesses. That takes time to develop, and the Fever already developed it. They already found the right pieces. Now they're being forced to start over. The cruel irony is that the CBA changes are supposed to benefit players. Higher salaries, better working conditions, more revenue sharing. All good things in theory. But the unintended consequence is that it makes it harder for teams to keep their cores together, which means more player movement, less roster stability, and ultimately, a worse product on the court. Players want to get paid what they're worth. Absolutely fair. But they also want to play on competitive teams with talented rosters. Those two goals are now in direct conflict under this salary structure. You can have a few max players, or you can have depth. You can't have both, and that hurts everyone involved. So what's the solution? There isn't an easy one. The players deserve higher salaries. The league's revenue is growing, but the salary cap structure needs to account for the reality that basketball is a star-driven sport where you need multiple elite players to compete. A hard cap that prevents teams from keeping 3 max players together doesn't work in a league where championships require star power. Maybe the answer is a softer cap, with luxury tax provisions like the NBA has. Maybe it's a higher overall cap number that gives teams more flexibility. Maybe it's restructuring how rookie contracts work so that teams get more years of cost-controlled talent. I don't have the perfect answer, but I know the current proposal creates more problems than it solves. What I do know is this: the Indiana Fever are about to become a case study in how not to handle roster construction under a new CBA. Not because they made mistakes, but because the system doesn't allow them to keep the team they built. And that's going to have ripple effects across the league, as other teams watch what happens and adjust their strategies accordingly. Expect to see more teams avoiding max contracts for anyone except their absolute best player. Expect to see more mid-level players getting squeezed out as teams prioritize either stars or cheap depth with nothing in between. Expect to see more roster turnover as teams constantly churn through players trying to find the right combination that fits under the cap. None of that is good for the league's growth. Stability matters. Continuity matters. Fans want to follow the same players over multiple seasons, watch them grow together, see rivalries develop. The new CBA makes that harder to achieve, and the Fever are going to be the first team to pay the price for it. So when you watch Indiana this season, appreciate what you're seeing, because it's probably the last time you'll see this specific roster together. Kelsey Mitchell launching threes, Lexie Hull crashing the boards, Sophie Cunningham bringing energy off the bench, Caitlin Clark orchestrating the offense, Aaliyah Boston dominating in the paint. This exact combination of players, this exact chemistry, this exact identity, enjoy it while it lasts. Because the CBA math says it can't last much longer. And that's the real tragedy here. Not that the Fever made mistakes, but that they built something special, and the league's economic structure won't let them keep it. Tell me what you think. Is there a way for the Fever to keep this core together, or is breaking up inevitable? Who would you prioritize if you're making the decisions? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed because this story is just getting started.